This is Eric Rutan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew McKay Smith.
You've tuned in to a conversation between myself and Sebasthian Bentos-Pereira from Beleth. Beleth have released an outstanding blackened groove effort called Silent Genesis. It's an album. Do check it out because it is available right now. So let's have a listen to what Sebasthian has to say. Heads up, this is one of those conversations where we cover a whole bunch of subjects outside of music. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Well before Dicey sent through the promo, I'd already received the album through Metal Devastation PR. Okay, so it was months ago, I think.
Yeah.
I was impressed. I've got to say, I'm not just saying that to you. I was so impressed with what you guys were doing that I included you in my June music show.
Thank you.
And I get sent hundreds, literally, if I had to guess, it'd be 600 or 700 new releases each month. So I sifted through what happened through March through to May. And I listened to you guys and yeah, you're Aussie, sure. But the quality, it's tip top, man. And so I went, man, I need to include you guys on this compilation because I need to, I feel it's not an obligation, but I want to give you guys a platform to my audience. And I want to put you guys out there, man. So congratulations to your point there, man. You didn't expect it, but here it is.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for saying the quality. I know Chris has got, he's got a better rig up there than I do. Everything that I've had down here was kind of like borrowed my wife's computer, did the recording on just a basic GarageBand. I had to look up a bit of YouTube videos on how to record and how to move things around. The microphone, I borrowed it from my sister. So for me, it was just kind of just grabbing things from here and there and just trying to make do with what I could. And to hear you say that it was quality work that we both put out, it means a lot. So thank you a lot. Thank you for that.
No, it's genuine. Look, I know that the new album, it's called Silent Genesis. And when I read a statement, and I had a bit of a chuckle over it, to be honest, but not at your expense, but it said that you guys are from the east coasts of Australia. So I sort of made a joke in my radio where I said we're transdimensional these days. There are many coasts on the east coast of Australia. So you guys obviously did this well apart from each other.
Yeah, Chris is from Gladstone up there in Queensland.
Yeah, just north of me. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm from Southwest Sydney, so we've never met, we've never seen each other. I've never heard his voice, but he's obviously heard mine. And that promo video, that promo photo that we've got of each other, it was literally him taking a photo of himself against a white wall, and myself taking a photo of myself against the white wall here at home, and he just spliced it together. So to say we're from one spot is disingenuous. But yeah, east coast of Australia is probably a general term. Same for the music. Like it's not one sound from what we've been getting from everyone, and it's been a mix and just dabbling from here and there from different genres. So a lot of it's just very generalized. It's just a generalized wording that we're doing because we haven't. For myself, we haven't found what direction exactly we want to go into in that aspect. So. But yeah, East Coast, yeah, it is funny. Like you'd say, you would hear people say, from a town in this city, in this country, but East Coast, and it's just the same thing. You can be like the West Coast of America or South UK, just pretty general.
Yeah. Well, even though I was born in Sydney, so I'm a big supporter of the Blues. I am a Queenslander. And I'm going to claim you as a Queenslander too from that perspective to use some state of origin parlance. Why don't we do that? Because given your bandmate is in Gladstone there and you're in southwest Sydney there, and it begs a question though, how did you guys meet? How did you guys collaborate? How did you guys form the idea to collaborate?
It was, we met on a Facebook group. He put up just a demo of this earlier song that we just recorded, and I got onto it as soon as I could. Tried to send him a demo. Mind you, the demo that I sent him, I was at work and I didn't have any recording equipment with me, so I had to download his song, record it from one phone, and record my vocals all at a distance as well, and try and match it up and then send that file over to him. And he liked it. And from that point onwards, it was just us working together and making something that we both enjoyed. We never really, he never really said, I want it to be like this, or I said, I want it to be like that. It was just, hey, I've made this, here you go. And I just put something on it and a few tweaks here and there, but we generally liked everything that we gave to each other, really.
That's so cool, man. I mean, again, the conversation for people listening, they won't understand that we've had a break in the Zoom communications. So we're basically going to start over again. But what I was saying earlier was that, or part of what I was about to say earlier, or wanted to say earlier, was that the previous fellow I was talking to, they collaborated too remotely, like what you're talking about. So using technology, which is the means to an end that we have to use in 2021 due to COVID restrictions, but not just that, great ideas have no boundaries.
Yeah.
You guys can collaborate from 1,500 kilometres apart, and it's all cohesive, evidently, based on what you guys have been able to conjure here with the debut album from Beleth.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit surreal, but I mean, it's true. Technology. During COVID, I think around the world, everyone's just gotten really creative and just tried to make do with what they could. And it's been great for the music scene. And there's been, the birth of new bands and some bands being able to make new material. So, I mean, it is sort of like a blessing in disguise amongst all the shit that's gone down. But it's this. If there wasn't this technology, I think it would have been a little bit difficult for most bands to even do anything musically. It would just be very in their box and not being able to expand and go out of their own realm to say.
Mate, I reckon the album is just it's a killer, brutal slab of ironclad grooving death. And you've just got some killer mid-bass sections, and your vocals are perfectly matched to what is going on with the music. So it sounds like you guys are focused on the heaviness. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, from what Chris has told me, he's come from a background more of a death metal, thrash metal sort of aspect. I've grown up myself more from the metalcore scene, and then I've slowly graduated into sort of like a deathcore sort of genre. Mm-hmm. And I've always liked the heavies. Like, don't get me wrong, I like some melodic stuff. I like generally anything that's good, sounds good. It could be pop, it could be old school rap, it could be, my own background is South American, so I still pop on a few Latin songs, sing them here and there, give a bit of a dance, but the heavy is always where I find myself at home. And for Chris to be able to bring his style, but somewhere within my realm, I think it's helped us both come to a balance of where we like. Obviously, we could probably expand on it a bit more, which we're already in the talks of doing another album soon, and writing and recording stuff, and we want to make it a bit bigger and a bit longer than the first one. So we'll see how that one pans out, really.
Did you grow up in southwestern Sydney?
Yeah, pretty much I've lived my whole life here since my parents moved out from South America. My dad from Uruguay and my mum from Chile. They met here, and I've moved around a fair bit, but I've always pretty much stayed within the Southwest Sydney area. It's pretty much been where I've grown up, living my life, really.
So Southwest Sydney to me, certainly, God, I hope I can say this. I get access to some of the crime and statistics and stuff, and it's a pretty brutal place at times. You know what I'm talking about. A lot of the media won't cover it because there's a racial angle and all that sort of bullshit, but they won't go there because they're afraid of being called racist. But it is a tough place to grow up if you're caught in I know in the day-to-day probably nothing wrong happens, but when things can go south, they can go seriously south. And I'm going to make an assumption here that as a heavy metal fan, you found yourself on the outer occasionally.
Yeah, it was listening to the type of stuff that I was listening to when I was a bit younger. It was out of the ordinary. Anyone that listened to any alternative or heavy music was kind of like, we had to find sort of certain places where we could meet up. It wasn't just, it wasn't as popular as it would be now to say around Southwest Sydney. Maybe it was to the older generation, I guess, but I wouldn't have known. But yeah, it was, you get different looks. I mean, the way that I look, I know I've got a bit of I look Middle Eastern. I'm South American, but I like heavy metal. So I would get a lot from family members and people that know me, like, why are you listening to that? Shouldn't you be listening to hip hop? Shouldn't you be listening to, reggae? I was like, yeah, I do, but I also like this. I prefer this more than that, but I can still listen to both. But I mean, Southwest Sydney it is rough, especially if you're not from the areas around here. But I mean, for me, seeing a group of guys walking around the streets, for me, it was pretty normal at 10, 11 o'clock at night, 2 in the morning. I do deliveries up North Sydney, and I see a guy walking in the middle of the streets, and that's a pretty rich area. If I see a guy walking the streets 3 in the morning, he's not going out there. He's doing something shady for sure. Out here, people, it was normal for me out here, but up there it's a bit strange for me because you see all these big rich houses and you see one guy just walking the streets alone at 3 in the morning. It's a bit shady for me.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, no, I was educated in Sydney, so I understand where you're coming from. But Southwest Sydney just has that, it's got nothing to do with the vibe. It is all about the statistics, and from Bankstown through to Liverpool, it's a very tough area. If you're basically, I mean, I understand your perspective that, you might look like you're Middle Eastern, but you're not. And people who are Middle Eastern can pick that up within sort of 5 seconds or so.
Yes.
You don't have the accent.
No,
and they know that,
no,
and I get that they can see that straight away.
Yeah, they can see that I'm not Middle Eastern. They can pick it up, but there's a bit of a doubt there. I would still get some older men come up to me and ask me something and then say Arabic or something. Yeah, and I'd be like, I'm sorry, I don't speak Arabic, or I don't know what you're saying. I'm South American. And I still get it now sometimes, not as much because I'm not living in that area anymore, because I actually was just like a suburb away from Liverpool, but I would go to Liverpool for high school. So I would get it a lot, but yeah, it's still that people who aren't Middle Eastern,
if they're not tuned into what's going on there, they don't understand what it's like in southwestern Sydney. It's a very unique part of the world, and it's got something like 2 million people in it. It's a huge area, massive area at the moment, and it's a growing area too. That's the other thing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in the last 10 years, everything's just blown up. Like Liverpool used to be just a smaller city, and now it's just, the infrastructure is just booming everywhere. I mean, that airport, that Badgerys Creek, they've been talking about building that for years, for decades. But
30 years,
But now the roads are starting to be built out. I remember driving down Camden Valley Way and Brinchurley Road. There were no lights down there. Now, big 3-lane highways, massive lights, houses and servers are starting to build up there. So you can tell that eventually people are going to start moving out there. I mean, house prices are insane, but people are still buying. That's the thing. It doesn't matter how high they get, people will still buy. That's the thing that I don't get sometimes.
How does the area influence your lyrics then, and what goes your philosophy around lyric writing?
The area, not really much. The area doesn't really influence me much per se, but it was more sort of the upbringing, really. My mother's always been very superstitious, and my dad was very spiritual. So it was, from my mother's side, was a lot of don't do this, don't do that. That's very goes against God. That's that's the devil here and there. And like Chris, the occultish stuff, that demonology and all that always interested me. And just I saw, the music, like this music scene touched a lot on that darker side, and it was very appealing to me. Not to the sense of, I want to live my whole life into that, but just reading things here and there, I think that drew me into it, and that's where I kind of drew some of my inspiration. The last couple of years have been very into H.P. Lovecraft.
Oh, nice.
And from that, I kind of drew a bit of inspiration for this album. And just kind of wrote sort of like a fictional telling to myself, really. Never thought anyone else would listen to it, but I mean, here we are, really.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic, man. I mean, the other point, there's just to round out the discussion about growing up in southwestern Sydney, but man, with what you're doing, it must have been a very individual pursuit, meaning that there wouldn't have been a lot of people around you from which to draw inspiration. So it must have been your own thoughts and philosophies and the direction that you wanted to go in, which gave you this killer vocal ability you've clearly got, and also this lyrical sensibility that you have.
Lyrically, there were a few people that I know in my life that are into sort of the same thing that I am. Like, I mean, my wife, she loves horror movies, and one of her favorite shows were Supernatural, and we could bond over that. And I remember watching the first episode of Supernatural, that was the Wendigo, and just that episode kind of stuck with me up until now. Like just the whole lore behind that. And I've got a mate's girlfriend that she's very into the exact same things that I am, like Lovecraftian, and I've actually gotten her. I've asked her if she could draw me up a few things, so maybe we can start putting it on merch, and I can sit down with her and kind of bounce ideas off to kind of see where we go, because she's very into that. But I mean, I've had a few people here and there, and I mean, one of my best mates, anytime that I've got some doubt or that I'm like, does this sound good, or like what would fit in here, he would come in and listen and be like, oh, try this, how about doing this? And he'd help me through that. So I'd have that support. I mean, my wife as well, she's been very supportive. She doesn't listen to this type of music, but I mean, she's been very supportive with everything that I've been doing. Like whenever she can take the kids, so I can do a bit of recording at home, sharing and just telling her mates and people that she thinks might like music. She's just been very supportive there.
Dude, that's so cool. You got kids as well. I've got 2 daughters, so I'm with you. And my wife is, I guess my wife's half Filipino, half Croatian. Okay, I'm not into this music at all, believe me. But is your wife? What background has your wife got?
She was born here, actually. Born Brisbane, I think it was.
Yeah,
somewhere in Brisbane. But her family's from England, around from Liverpool area, actually.
Okay. Yeah. Gotcha. So, yeah. Nice. Okay. So you got that support there. It has to come from somewhere, doesn't it? The parental support, or in your case here, you're living a life on your own 2 feet, no doubt with a mortgage and all of that sort of stuff, or renting, and you got the kids there. But I mean, that's the thing. It's our dream, isn't it? And it's our dream to express ourselves creatively, and you're doing it through this raucous, this grooving death black metal thing that you've got going on, But I mean, is this something that you've always wanted to do?
Yeah, this has been since I first discovered Slipknot and watched the disaster piece live set at London.
Okay,
just watching the whole stage presence of the band and the crowd interaction. That kind of put in my head that this is something that I want to do in my life. I mean, even if it's to a room of 5 people or 5,000 people, like it doesn't matter. Like, I've always wanted to do that. And I think musically, I get that a lot from my dad. He's always loved music. He's always played the guitar. So I think I get my musical love from him in that aspect. But yeah, I've never really played any shows. I've got a few mates together, and we played in, sort of like a garage in the back of my garage, got some kits and just pissed around, but we never got anything serious. Then I kind of stopped because I did get a bit, kind of lost interest because I thought maybe this isn't for me. Then I slowly started practicing my vocals, seeing a few YouTube videos on trying to do different styles, styles that wouldn't hurt my voice, and I could, do this for a longer time. Maybe, hopefully, even if my kids wanted to even learn it, I could show them and teach them. And then COVID happened, and
here we are
looking online. Saw Chris, and here we are. Yeah.
Has there been a strategy for the marketing side of things? Because, as I say, I'm on Zach Moonshine and Metal Devastation PR's mailing list. So I got this a while ago. And then Dicey sent it through as well. And honestly, Dicey's a great advocate for anybody. Dicey and Miller down there at in Sydney, he's in Brookvale, I think, with his studio there. But to get that cosign, I basically have a rule, and I've got to be honest here. People on the podcast have heard me say this before, but I get sent a lot of, you call it unsolicited material. I just see people send me stuff, whatever.
Yep.
And I get a lot of requests to appear on the show. And I've got to be honest, I don't take a lot of it. And the reason for that is a lot of the Australian stuff that I've done over the past few years, if you just find that there's not quite, it's not about professionalism, but you just want to, from my perspective, I just want to see that cosign, meaning you've got Dicey in your corner. He supports you guys and believes in you guys. That's a hell of a green tick, man. Yeah, it's basically saying, man, I mean, he to me is like there's a couple of guys. There's Chris Murray, there's John Howarth, Lachlan Watt, obviously, who takes care of the racket or with whatever 3 hours of power is called these, I forget, Andrew Hogue. But you've got one of those guys, like the upper echelon of heavy metal in Australia, who's supporting you guys. So, I mean, to get that so quickly from the sounds of things, man, you're clearly doing something right, and you're obviously feeling that too. So just to go back to my original question there about, how do you spread the word? Has it been easy for you to spread the word?
Look, honestly, that's been Chris, and Chris has done fantastic with that. I mean, he's played in bands before, and he's had some connections in the past, and I think from that he's been able to use that as a stepping stone to be able to go to people that he knows, and then from there move on to other places. And he just went very old school, just sent out copies and sent out emails to anyone and everyone he could, and whoever got back to us. And I think it's just been lucky. I think it's just been luck, really, that anyone's liked anything that we've done. And to hear you say Dicey liked it, and he's actually, I see it for me, because of COVID and because I was away from doing this for a while, to hear that Dicey's actually one of the, as you call him, top echelon people of heavy metal, heavy music in Australia. I didn't know that. So hearing you say it first is a bit of a shock to me. And it means, okay, we've done something good, that someone like him would actually like our stuff. And I think that's just been more luck. But how everything's been going out and how we've been marketed, it's all been Chris. He's done all that behind the scenes stuff, and he's done that perfectly. I think it would be a lot of his background and a lot of his past experience with playing in other bands. He's been able to do that. So he's been the big drive. I mean, doing all the instruments, the mixing, and then he's doing the PR for the band. I mean, the guy's a workhorse, really.
Is your mother, being from Chile, is she very Catholic?
She was raised Catholic. She's gone through, I don't know what faith she is now, but she grew up Catholic. But she's always been very religious in that aspect. She left mainly Chile because of the poverty and more of the dictatorship that was there at the time. So she didn't want that for her kids, and she could see a lot of people disappearing.
Yeah, suffering big time. Yeah, a lot of suffering going on in Chile.
Yeah, so religiously for her, like, she's even now, she still tries to, not preach to us, but kind of just put a bit of the faith on us very, very slightly and subtly, but it's still there to this day. But growing up, I never took to it. I always saw it as, I like to believe that there is something out there, but it doesn't care, to say, really.
That's so true, brother. I've felt the same way for so long. I'm so glad you say that. It's just an ambivalent force. It doesn't give a shit. It holds everything together, but it looks on us with almost like pious indifference, if I can use that term. I know that's kind of a contradiction, but, there is a reverence to things, but it is an indifference at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I don't want to say that it's not there, because you can't, with science, you can't disprove it and you can't prove it. So to say it's not there is disingenuous, but to say it's there isn't also true. So my own belief, I'd like to think that there's something there, but it's doing its own thing. We're doing our own thing, and for people to preach about religion, I mean, there are some certain aspects to every religion that is good. It has its positives, but there's a lot of negative aspects to it. And the one thing that I don't agree upon is, if you follow a faith, why do you need to go to a certain place to worship that being, if that being is everywhere? That doesn't make sense. Why would you have to pour money into it, build and erect statues and monuments, if he is everywhere? If he's in your home, in the trees, in the air, why do you have to go and put money into it? Why wouldn't you try and help other people? No. So, but that's my belief, and I think a bit of that comes off in a bit of my music, especially with Firstborn. When I first wrote that, I kind of saw myself as being, the aspects of the song ties in as an evil entity fighting Egyptian gods, and a lot of the wording in it it has a lot of Egyptian words in it, like gods and
is that about Set, the god Set? The great deceiver. Yeah, nice.
Yeah. And so, and I think that in my mind, I envisioned it as a battle between sort of evil eldritch beings and Egyptian gods. But when I listened to it a couple of times, I could see that it's my personal faith or beliefs against my mother's personal beliefs. Because she's very into the Egyptian culture as well, and I think that's where I pulled a bit of that from. It was just that sort of.
That's when monotheism started through Akhenaten and Ra. That's where it all started. Through Islam, through even I think I understand Buddhist belief. It all comes from Hinduism, right? It all comes from Sanskrit and Hinduism. But it's then just been disseminated, and then I almost feel like a monotheism, if I can say this, is a corruption in some ways, because there's just I believe in the very simplistic perspective that there's just too much to do for one God. It's a manifestation of many thoughts.
I mean, having ideas and all that, that's fine, but saying that you have to follow this book, I mean. So, like, the books weren't written by, a higher being. They were all written by man, and man is flawed. We make mistakes.
Big time.
So how can you trust something that someone, and also with thousands of years of translation and mistranslation and, converting it from one language to another, you're going to lose. It's just Chinese whispers the whole way.
It is just Chinese whispers, and it's whoever has the dominant narrative. We know that through history that it's not about what happened. It's about the victor writing the history books.
That's true.
Egypt, I'm a massive, I wouldn't call myself a student of ancient Egypt, but I'm intensely interested. Okay, maybe I'm a student then. But the point being that I can't remember which crypt it was, but only recently they've found a crypt. So a tomb, in other words, and of course they've gone into it and they've found all the treasures or whatever was left of the treasures after whatever the grave robbers left. But it's a historical fact that the grave robbers never touched the hieroglyphs. There's no point. There's no value in scrubbing them off or what have you. But all of these hieroglyphs are switched off, and just big rock marks all the way through them. It's like, what the hell went on there? To my understanding, they did some dating on when those scratches were basically made. Okay, it was at the same time that they appeared. So basically, as soon as the individual died and his great worthiness was carved into stone or in picture by these hieroglyphs, whoever was next went, you know what? Fuck it, let's just scrub it all off. And this is 3,000 years ago. Okay, so it's propaganda. Effectively, this propaganda appears in the form of hieroglyphs. The next pharaoh or the next ruler, the priest or whatever it might be, comes along and goes, let's get rid of that. We'll scratch it all off, or try to scratch it all off. Maybe they got interrupted halfway through. But, I mean, history is truly outside of what we can find and like scientifically verify. If it comes through human hands or word of mouth, I'm not saying it's bullshit. It's just law. That's all it is.
Yeah. That's true. It's not fact. It's a lot. A lot of it's just word of mouth. It's just how you hear it, and how can you trust that? Where's your source, really? So,
mate, you can't, and there's no point in trying. I think, which is why it's interesting looking at the way people argue over politics on Facebook Messenger, not Messenger, but on comment sections and whatever.
Yeah.
And, in the Daily Telegraph or Sydney Morning Herald or Courier Mail for me, this sort of thing. I subscribe to all of them, news media. But I look at the comment sections and I just think, dear God, we have not evolved at all. We have not evolved. We pick a side because we're tribal, and we espouse that narrative because we believe it, not because we know it's fact.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. We're very tribal, so we like to pick a side, and we kind of cast down anyone that doesn't pick a side more than someone who opposes the other side. it is very strange in that sense.
I can see that you've got there a Rode NT USB mic. It's in the corner there, my left-hand corner there, right there. Yeah, that one there.
Yeah.
So that's the mic that you've used to record all the vocals.
Yes, this is the one that I borrowed from my sister, and I've recorded everything. It came with a pop filter as well.
Yeah, correct. I've got the same one. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I've got that one, and I don't know whether you can see this one here, but I've got the Rode Podcaster, which has just been brilliant for this stuff. But on the road, I use that one there because it's so versatile.
This one I used for recording the whole album. I didn't think it was the right mic, but I just tried to make it work however I could. That was just a lot of changing settings and trying to position myself differently with this mic, because I know this is more for a podcast mic than it is a recording.
But it still works so clearly. I mean, it works great.
I mean, it still worked. So if I could, I'll use it again for certain things. But I did get one for Christmas. I got a new mic, and I can't remember what it is. It's one of those content creators package. So
it's one with the light that comes with it as well. Is that one, or is it the bright light that comes with it from JB? Have you seen those packages?
No, I don't think it's that. It's the one that's got the. What is it? It comes with an arm, and it's a CUSB attachment. I can't remember.
It's not this one, is it? Because this one, can you see that? That's got the arm and everything on it.
The arm looks identical, and it looks sort of like your mic, but there's a panel on the actual mic at the front of it.
Oh, okay,
where you can jack into it and change the volumes. But there's no.
Is it Rode? Is it made by Rode as well, or made by somebody else?
I think it might be Rode, but I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to.
I know
most
check. Of the Rode stuff, and that doesn't come to mind, but it might be there. It just might not be that I've seen it. That's all. But look, the fact that using Rode equipment says a lot, though, because I don't know whether as a I'm in the same boat here. So when I say this, we're hobbyists effectively. And what we're doing, I don't think Rode make better product than what we can afford.
Yeah, from what I've seen, it's pretty good quality for a budget. I mean, I've looked at getting. I think the best mic that I've seen out now for harsh vocals and for growling and screaming would be the SM58. SM58, but
I don't know whether I can bring this over, but where is it? That's what I use as well. So that's my other setup. That's what I do for voiceover work. But I'm a musician too, so I do a lot of singing. And mate, the SM58, you just cannot. Even for this, to be honest with you, it beats the shit out of even this and the one that you're using. And because I've got that one, but the SM58, once you've got a Scarlett 2.1 or like I've got 2i2, whatever it is. I mean, it's just not as practical as what I'm doing now. That's why I use this. But in terms of sound quality, mate, it is like using Premiere Pro, which is what I use for the podcast and stuff, and then I like laying over some filters and stuff on it. Man, it's just amazing the sound that it comes out with.
Yeah, everyone swears by. Like, I'm in a community group on Facebook that is just about vocals, and people will throw up questions. What is the best mic for this and that? What mic's best for this price range? And it always goes back to the SM8
58.
This is the best one that you could get, but here are budget ones, and I mean it's all over the world, so try and test it all over.
Yeah, the SM58, as far as I'm concerned, is the Toyota Camry of microphones, meaning that it does everything, and you'll see it on the road in 20 years' time after someone's bought it without a service.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just incredible what it can do. I mean, my one's bent. It's been dropped. It's literally got a flat bit on it from where it's been dropped on the ground, and someone stepped on it through all the mini gigs that I've done, but it's still going. And there's no point, mate, until it dies. I've got a backup, but until it dies, what the hell's the point in changing it? I'm just buying the same technology over again. It hasn't changed since the 80s.
Did you buy the backup, or did it come with it?
No, I bought the backup only because I used to be like pre-COVID, I was gigging like 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And look, shit, I've seen people at gigs pour beer into effects racks and stuff. I've seen people do the stupidest things drunk you could imagine, play with pedals and stuff. And my theory was always that if someone grabbed it and, without being too crude, shoved it up their ass, which meant that I couldn't use it, that I could just put the backup in. And the key point is sound the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Depending on how inebriated or otherwise I was, of course, but I'm talking about it sound the same from a sonic perspective. It was all up to me after that.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and they're $200 or $300. They're not that much ultimately for something that lasts as long as what it does.
Yeah, true. I mean, you've gotten your money out of it several times over, I guess.
Hey, just about the music again. Have you got much interest from overseas? Given, let's face it, black death metal and this sort of stuff you're doing is probably more popular in South America, Mexico. Mexico's huge for this stuff.
Actually, funnily enough, you say that we've gotten a lot of attention from overseas, from South America, Mexican, Italian. What was the other one? Spain, actually.
Yeah.
We got a request from someone from France for a signed autograph,
Nice.
which is.
Dude, that's
strange
sweet.
for us. So, but I mean, yeah, we've gotten a bit of playtime and review from America, Germany, actually, as well. Germany's big on it as well. We've gotten a few reviews and a few play on there, but it's been worldwide that we've gotten a lot of the attention from. Australia's been good, but everywhere else has been a lot bigger.
Look, I find that with the podcast too. Like, I've got to say, my audience is growing. My Australian audience share is diminishing down to where I think it's under 10% these days. So 90% of my audience, which is growing, is offshore. And trust me, I am trying. Okay, because the marketing and sponsorship opportunities actually come through a domestic audience, not through an international audience.
Yeah,
but. It's as I say, it's not that my audience share is growing and my Australian share is static. It's decreasing. And I'm interviewing, like prior to yourself, I'm interviewing the guys in Halloween, Eric Rutan from Hate Eternal, Morbid Angel, Cannibal Corpse. I can't be doing more than what it is that I'm doing in terms of the vast majority of people I interview aren't Australian. Okay, they're internationally based, and you think a lot of Aussies. I love interviewing people like yourself. Trust me, it's a real passion of mine to support Australian music. But a lot of it, and I've got to say it, man, a lot of it isn't quite there yet. Like, you guys are there, but some of it isn't. So a lot of it isn't there either that I get contacted for interviews with offshore. But when it isn't there with Australian audiences, they seem to have that tall poppy syndrome and they go after you. They sort of cut you down a bit on social media and start shit talking you a bit. And it's like, why are you doing that? We're fucking it's a small scene in Australia. It's not like what it is in South America or Mexico or the United States of Australia.
Yeah, no, for the type of music that we're playing, it's not as big here. And I think a lot of it has to do with everywhere else has that history where not bigger bands, but more of this type of music would go there than Australia, I feel. And that's why the love is still there for a lot of the people there. Like, it's just gone through generation, and it's just stayed in that big community. Whereas here, even when we get big festivals or shows in Australia, it doesn't cover all of Australia. You get your Brisbane, you get your Sydney, Melbourne, and
maybe Perth if you're lucky.
Maybe if you're lucky, Perth. But other than that, no one else tours anywhere else around Australia. The one that I give props to, the one band that I give props to that did well, and I hold them very, very, very dear to my heart, is Parkway Drive. What they did for themselves and for smaller communities to play smaller shows and rural shows, not only in Australia but other countries, I have not seen from anyone else the way that they did it, just living on a bus, sleeping wherever they could, going to small towns, small venues, going to countries that no one's played in. I mean, they played in India, in some what was it? From what I remember, the floorboards there was just pieces of wood covering, a 2-foot drop down. If you fell, you'd break your ankle.
Yeah,
but I mean, going to places like that, like, they're very cool dudes. I met them a couple of times, and they've always remembered me and my mate and the shows that they put. I know it's not the same music to what I'm doing, but they've been a big inspiration and a big driving force for me to be able to do what they've done, and hopefully be able to do. Hopefully, I mean, this started out as a hobby, and it's blown up. But if I can do a fraction of what they did, I think I'll be happy with what I leave music-wise, because Australia needs more. It needs a bigger scene. It needs more to expand a bit more, give a bit more love to Perth. I'm not sure about Darwin. I don't even hear anyone play
don't
anything.
Even get there. You're right,
No.
and I totally agree with what you're saying about at Parkway Drive. And King Parrot were another band that did something. They have recently done something similar, playing in Cairns, playing I think Darwin too. But you're right. It's like, guys, these might not be territories from the perspective that you can grow your audience share massively there, but it says a lot about your commitment to spreading the word and playing these places. Like, if you're playing Brisbane, I don't know, I haven't done it before, but I'd love to know, as a percentage of the cost of the overall tour, if you're touring all of Australia's major cities, how much it costs extra to include Darwin. Okay, because it just isn't being done, for example. And look, I've spoken to bands that have played, you're talking about your fellow bandmate Chris there being from Gladstone and stuff. I've spoken to every band, every member of a band that I've spoken to that's done gigs in regional Australia, including, and Gladstone has come up, has said how much fun they've had and how great the response was. There's money to be made is what I'm saying. You can do it. I'm not talking about you're not going to become Clive Palmer, but I'm just saying you're going to break even on costs is what I'm saying. I'm sure of that.
But I mean, getting the experience and getting the feedback and, putting out to that community, stepping outside of the norm and going to them rather than them coming to you would leave a lasting impression, and if it repeats, then you've, for them and for yourself and others down the track, you create something that can blossom there for future generations, like for future musical generations. And, you can inspire more people to do the same thing or, go something down the same or similar track, really. But yeah, you're right. It's not, you might break even, but it's not about the money. It should never be about the money. It should just be having fun and just, having it as an experience, really. That's what it should be about, like the music. Jesus.
Well, regional, you good? You're good?
Yeah. Just antiviral software and all that.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, music, I think, is about. I've long championed regional areas. I'm not from one. I couldn't call the Gold Coast a regional area, but it has echoes of it, I suppose, in some ways. In that no major band plays Gold Coast; they play Brisbane. But I mean, it's only at max 100 k's away. You have to travel to Boondall to the entertainment centre or QPAC in the city or what have you. So it's not that big a deal. But playing and supporting regional environments is always something that I saw bands doing growing up in the 90s because it was, I mean, you can play 17 dates. You can easily play 17 dates in Australia if you're willing to put the legwork in. And if you basically, I mean, you wouldn't be staying in 5-star accommodation. We get that. But work out someone's place to stay in. All of this was DIY stuff. I remember, I'll never forget trying to help a guy in the States just through spreading the word, not through doing anything else apart from being a journalist. But he had a company called Tour Vival, and it didn't last. And it was all about DIY punk and metal bands being able to source accommodation in cities so they could play there. And then you built up, I think it was like a point system. You built up points for how many times you did that. And I don't know how the monetary reward worked. Maybe that was the issue, the system there. But it was all about connecting people in cities so that they could play there, but most importantly, have somewhere to sleep, which wasn't on the road.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
You solved that problem, man. You can get metal bands and punk bands into regional Australia. And you guys, and this is the ultimate final question for you, though, but the live front, is there an intention to bring the music to the people that way?
Yeah, I'd like to, from like myself, and I'd probably advocate for it, but I'd like to be able to do that, get it out to regionally, like people out regionally. I mean, especially now with the technology, you could, plan ahead of time, so it's not so jarring to the people there and to people around. So it might be, financially good for the band, even if it's just a fraction. But like I said, that's not the important part. But organising it would be a lot easier nowadays to do that, rather than word of mouth. And you build communities, and not just Australia, but you could take that elsewhere. Well, once all this bullshit blows over, be able to do that and do the same thing out there. It would be ideal to be able to do that, really. I can't speak for Chris, but for myself, it would be something that I would like to do. Hopefully in the future soon.
What do you think? I told you that was a worthy conversation with an emerging musician from southwestern Sydney. Beleth is the name of the band. Sebasthian Bentos-Pereira is the fella you just heard from. If you enjoyed that conversation, please like, subscribe and share, or even better, leave a comment. I'd appreciate that. If you want to listen to many more conversations just like that one, go across to scarsandguitars.com, where over 550 more await. My name's Andrew Mackay-Smith, and I'm the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast series. It's goodbye for now.